British Columbia's Premier doesn't seem to think British Columbia should even exist. David Eby's NDP enshrines Indigenous veto. Fails to protect Crown lands. Welcome to Wake Up Canada News. I'm Brad Wilder. This next article was written by Adam Pankratz of the National Post. BC Premier David Eby is unique among provincial leaders for many reasons, but perhaps the most striking is that he seems to not really believe the province he governs should even exist. Recent land management decisions and deals made by Eby and his NDP government explicitly state that the government of British Columbia is no longer the final arbiter of what happens in this province, as control is ceded to First Nations in backroom deals. This is not reconciliation in action. It's high-handed abuse of BC's Crown lands that will only result in resentment and lost opportunity for the province and its citizens. The most recent episode in Eby's abuse of public lands is a deal agreed to with the Tsilhqot'in Nation. Known as the Tsilhqot'in Agreement, it seems to resolve mineral tenures in the Tsilhqot'in Fish Lake area. Stated implicitly in the agreement is the fact that there will be no mining activity without the free, prior, and informed consent of the Tsilhqot'in Nation. The agreement then specifies that the Tsilhqot'in Nation's consent to a proposed mine project is necessary for that mining project to proceed, and that the parties have agreed to negotiate a consent-based decision-making agreement. There in black and white is what Eby and the NDP envision as their interpretation of the much-debated meaning of free, prior, and informed consent, a veto. The Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, or DRIPA, which was passed in 2019, aimed to bring BC laws into alignment with the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, or UNDRIP. The UN document, however, was never intended to become law. At its core, it's aspirational about the rights of Indigenous peoples in countries in which they continue to be actively persecuted. In fact, Article 46.1 of UNDRIP purposely points out that the declaration is not intended to impair or supersede the sovereignty of a state. As a result, UNDRIP's true relevance to Canada was always limited, as we already have constitutionally guaranteed Indigenous rights and other strong legal protections. There has, for some time now, been a concern that the free, prior, and informed consent requirements of DRIPA would give First Nations a veto over large infrastructure and resource projects, but the government frequently rebuffed these claims. The Tsilhqot'in Agreement makes plain that this is not the case. First Nations will have veto power in all but name if the NDP are allowed to implement their vision for public lands in British Columbia. Now, making matters worse, the Tsilhqot'in area is not even established within the Tsilhqot'in Aboriginal Title Area. The area is clearly Crown land, which makes the BC NDP's decision not to defend these public lands or the users of that land even more troublesome. Further, the agreement also begins a land use planning process on a larger area of Crown land that the nation asserts as the Tsilhqot'in next Wew'suwet'en without engaging the relevant rights holders. The current abuse of public lands by the BC NDP should be squarely directed towards David Eby's government and its new Minister of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship, Randeen Neil. It's entirely natural that the First Nations want the best deal that they can get, but by selling the rest of BC down the river, Eby's NDP is doing serious damage to our future prosperity and to reconciliation efforts. The implications of the new agreement on mineral tenure and land use in the Tsilhqot'in area should concern all British Columbians. If the future of the province is to be one where the Crown lands can be accessed freely by all, secret deals of this type, in which the government abdicates its responsibility to defend the rights of all BC residents to the benefit of a few, must end. Thanks for watching Wake Up Canada News. Please like, share, and follow us on any of your favorite socials, including Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, X, BitChute, and our website at wakeupcanadanews.com. Till next time, remember you're the voice, and it's time to make it count. I'm Brad Wilder, and I'll see you again soon.